There are mysteries in this world I may never understand until I die the final time, and that's okay with me.
Welcome to the Orykl podcast, where spirituality, inspiration, and education come together. We have 3 playlists. In spiritual stories, we explore profound moments in personal spiritual journeys. In spiritual entrepreneurship, we share insights to help spiritual practitioners and their businesses thrive. And in spiritual leadership, I offer my perspective on leading with authenticity and heart. So, welcome everyone to the Orykl podcast, Spiritual Stories. Today, I am joined by Sharon Milliman, who has had not 1, not 2, and not 3, but 4 near-death experiences. Since she sent this little blurb about her, she has since had an operation. So I'm dying to hear if something happened. But let me introduce her and explain a little bit. Her first NDE, near-death experience, happened at the age of 13 when she drowned while taking swimming lessons. The second one was when she was struck by lightning while talking on her cell phone. That was in 2005. The third one was in November 2016 while she was going emergency surgery. And the fourth one was in 2017 due to an adverse reaction to seizure medication. Now, Sharon has been a guest on several radio shows as well as YouTube interviews and podcasts. She was featured in the National Geographic Channel in a show about near-death experiences, which aired in April 2016. She's been a guest speaker at numerous spiritual-oriented groups and regularly attends conferences, various churches, hospitals, and hospice groups. And she has also authored 3 books: A Song in the Wind, a near-death experience; The Whispers in the Wind, a poetic journey of the soul; and A Rose from Heaven. And all of her books can be found on Amazon. Sharon, welcome and thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
When you made the booking, you had mentioned in your email that you couldn't do it straight away because you were going to undergo surgery and that you would do it a bit later. And now that we connected just before, you said did have the surgery, the hip surgery. And I said, did something happen? Because um, died 4 times. I mean, did you? I mean, you're here, so that's what's important. So even if you did, you're here. And I was expecting a no, but you said yes, something happened. And so I am kind of at the edge of my seat because I want to hear the story because it's fascinating that a lot of people that have had NDEs tend to have multiple NDEs, which I find absolutely fascinating, which will be one of my questions down the road. But please tell me what happened literally a week ago, right? More or less.
Yeah, so it was actually a week ago today, and I think I've got my days all mixed up. But anyway, yes, I went in for the surgery, and actually, about a week before the surgery, I started getting very anxious because I had this feeling that something's going to happen. This something big is going to happen. And normally I'm not frightened. I've had so many surgeries, it's not even funny. So that by itself really didn't bother me. It was that I knew, and how I knew, I don't know.
Yeah.
But as time got closer and closer to the surgery, I was literally telling my family I love them and forgive me for any mistakes I've made. And showing my kids where certain things were so they could have. And the day of the surgery, I was literally crying the whole day. It was
If we all knew this was our last day, I can't imagine what it must have felt.
They took me into surgery. Of course, they doped me up good because I was so nervous. They got me into the operating room, and they did the surgery, but something happened during the surgery. I stopped breathing, and I knew this, but nobody would say anything. And so I asked one of the nurses when I got to the recovery. I opened my eyes and I looked right at her and I said, "Something happened." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You know what I mean. Something happened during surgery." And she was like, um, um, and the look on her face was priceless. But she's like, "How did you know?" And I said, "I don't know. I know that something happened." She told me. She said it was a huge confirmation because she said, "You're right. You stopped breathing.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to get you stable again." And she said, "I just can't believe you knew that." I said,
Wow.
"Yeah." So
And did you go somewhere at this time, or you don't remember that? You just knew that you died and came
I
back?
knew that I had died and came back.
Yeah.
And I also know from having so many that you might not remember everything right off the bat, but it will
Mm.
come back to you in bits and pieces.
Yes,
So I'm
yes.
not concerned about it. It was more like being in the void again, which was that
Mm.
beautiful black blanket that I felt so comfortable in.
Yeah, we can go over your ending. So I just want to touch on some of the similarities perhaps between them because I mean we could be here for 4 hours, I think, telling your story. It's just so incredible. And perhaps we'll point to some other YouTubes that are out there of you telling your story, which are told so beautifully. But I'd like to maybe touch on, if I may, a couple of elements within the NDEs. I know that you saw Jesus once or twice, I'm not sure. I'd love to
Mm.
hear your take on who Jesus is to you.
Who he is to me?
And if there is a misinterpretation of him anywhere.
He has been a very integral part of my life since I was a little girl. And I can remember at 3 and 4 years old, I knew who he was. I didn't even, I was too young to even say his name, but I knew who he was. It was like I remembered him from before I was born or whatever. I just was born knowing this person, and I loved him so much that I remember even when I was 11 and 12 and 13 and we were still getting Easter baskets, I would sit all day long eating my Easter candy and watching the Passion movies that they used to play on Easter Sunday. And it was like, I just want to be with you. I want to be close to you as you go through what you're going through. And that was my way as a child to love him and be present with him.
Would you say that he was like your spirit guide, right? And he still is, perhaps, guiding you through life. Would that make sense?
Oh, he's so much more than just a spirit guide. But what
Oh,
he does is he knows what's in my heart. He knows what's in your heart. He's the reader of hearts and the healer of hearts. And there have been times in my life where some really bad things were happening. But I'm one of those people that just keeps everything inside. I don't tell people. I
mhm.
don't want to be a burden to anyone. So I just keep it inside and I deal the best way I can. But every single time that I have encountered him, whether it was physically here in the house, I have had physical visitations with Jesus, and he looks exactly the same every time I see him. And I have actually gone to the church down the street with my husband as a witness because I
Mm,
seem to have witnesses for everything I say. I told him everything. I
yeah.
told him about the times that Jesus appeared, and it wasn't just like a dream. It wasn't a vision. It was physical.
My interpretation, of people's relationship with religion is actually a deep spiritual relationship that I feel we misconstrue or we misunderstand as human beings as being to this or that or that. I feel like it's a topic that might interest some people because there's always a conflict, right, between religion and
Oh,
spirit.
yeah, you are 100% correct. And one of the things I was just getting ready to say is that Jesus is not religious.
Because we have one of our channelers, she channels Jesus, but she actually talks at churches kind of explaining or like the different, I don't know how she does it, you know what I mean? But I mean, she's not religious and she's not a
I'm
Christian.
not religious.
Jesus, I find very tricky because people are so emotionally attached. I'm not worried about me. I'm just trying to like actually marry the two so that there isn't conflict. So that we're like, guys, it's cool, you know?
He was a human being, and
Yes.
it is well documented that he did exist.
It
And
is.
if the way I look at it is he's not religious. It isn't about religion, it's about relationship. It
Mm,
never was about religion. And I'm not religious at all. I'm more spiritual because if you say I'm religious, then you're putting God in a certain little box.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And he can't be put in a box. He's too big for that. And so I don't look at church's dogmas and all the rules and all that kind of stuff. The way I feel it is because in every situation, I stop and think, what would he do?
Mm,
And I do try to do what he did. And he was human, but he was also divine.
yeah.
And I have it broke down in a writing that I did. On his mother's side, he's this, and this. But on his father's side, he's this, and this. So it was pretty clear who he was and what he was, but
Mm.
I don't push that on people.
But I mean, I appreciate that you explain it this way because I think what you said is so true. Like, it's a relationship, an intimate, in a way, relationship between you and Jesus in this case. Now, I want to ask you this. Can I say Jesus in this case? And could I say, I don't know much about the other religions, you know, because I'm not religious, but say Muhammad over here and Buddha over here and where all might be over there, right? Would that be as valid?
Yeah,
Somebody who said that, would you honor that? Would you respect that and believe that?
absolutely.
Because I feel like this is important information to get out into the world because you are somebody who has had a very real relationship with Jesus, where you've seen him physically, you've felt him. And okay, nobody could probably prove it. Like, okay, give me scientific, like I want a, a photo, I don't know, everything, something like that. You still can't. So there'll be the skeptics, right? Of course.
In one of my experiences, there were 4 other women that saw him as well, and I have a paper, where one of the ladies on my Facebook wall wrote, she said, "That is him. He was real. I was there. He healed my mother." So, because people were asking for proof, you know, and you can't take cell phones with you to heaven, so
Right. So, okay, but so now somebody listening to this who is religious, let's say Christian, and I before I say this, I just want to say that my intention is to amicably understand each other, like all religions and all people. So that's the intent of this. Now, it's my personal, humble take on this that that person, if somebody who's religious thinks it's Jesus, they often kind of go, well, you see, Christianity is right, and therefore I believe everything that the church says because I believe you, what you're saying, but therefore everything the church says is true. And that includes a whole bunch of things. Sex before marriage, all these sins that we supposedly are doing and feeling guilt and feeling fear and feeling that we should do these things because the religion says it, but it's not what I'm really feeling that I should be doing. So for me, this is a bit of a problem. And so I would love for people to still believe in Jesus, still understand that he was real, still understand that he was an incredible light being, as there are so many other light beings in the world. He was just a very high vibrating being whose purpose is here to, heal the world. But there are so many, and so are we. There's a part of us that is also that. And so I don't know how we can do to heal the relationship between religion and, spirituality. Like, what is your take on this?
this is a very wonderful conversation that we're having, and I believe that it is God inspired, really. I mean, that's how I feel. People have asked me before, what is the one true religion? There is no one true religion. Any religion or any tradition or any belief system that you have that brings you closer to God, source, great spirit, whatever the name is that you put on God, and he goes by a billion names, and he speaks in a billion languages, you know? He's not limited, so he can be anywhere and everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. So, religion is just it's okay, it's good because some people need that structure, they need that community, that fellowship, and that's all great and wonderful, but God and Jesus and Muhammad and all of these, white buffalo calf woman, all of these sacred beings are leading us towards the one, you know, and it doesn't matter. God is not going to ask you when you die, did you go to church? Did you belong to this particular church? Did you do this? Those are man made tools to get you to understand who God is and what God is and all of that.
I cannot agree more. And I'm going to ask you, what does a person do that goes to church and listens to what the priest says every week? By church, you could say insert whatever institution, right? But without the freedom for us to choose. So, in other words, it will start making it an organized religion with certain dogma and certain shoulds and shouldn'ts. And now they're struggling because part of what the priest is saying and the message is resonating with them so much that they're really a true believer. But then they're saying this other thing. What should they do? Should they not go to church? Or should they go to church and discern what, is good for them or not? Or should they go to church and listen with one ear and not with the other? Or should they, because as you say, like it to a lot of people, it does work. And it's not only about the message that the religion brings, but it's about the community and all of the things that they do together, how they help each other. That's, I think, very important, very valuable. It's something that I feel we're kind of lacking in the world, community and interactions. I think the church provides that. And that's, you go to, give them a point, basically. But how then can we keep that and all the other good things and remove these, in my opinion, wrong things that are said through religion? How do we do that?
There has been a lot of horrific things done over the centuries. The people doing it are using the church as a cover, and they're doing it in the name of God. And I believe that there are man made rules and there are God made rules. What I mean by God made rules, they would be universal laws, spiritual laws. And the thing of it is that
I'm going to ask you something. I really like what you're going because you're right. There are some man made rules and there are some God made rules, right?
exactly.
I'm going to ask you this, and I have my answer. How do people discern whether this is a man made rule or a God made rule? How can they discern themselves which one it is?
I don't know. It's something that I've known my whole life, and it's kind of hard to put into
So
words.
tell me if I'm correct. In my opinion, if you sit in silence for a minute, okay, about something that's happening in your life and you have like two options, right? And you don't know if this is something or the church is saying something. And then if you close your eyes and you center yourself and you go into your heart and you go, does this decision, this thing feel right? Does it feel right to me? Because yeah, like that really resonates true to me. I do believe in that. My heart, something inside me believes in that. It's true. I know it to be true. And then the other one, the man-made rule one, we doubt from the get-go. And we almost have to convince ourselves that this is a good thing. It doesn't come natural. It doesn't come like, oh, yeah, this is the right thing. And I'm just going to use sex as an example. No sex before marriage, okay? okay, I'm just gonna sit with myself here for a little minute, and like, how does it sit with me? Like, so here's the thing, without asking, well, if I'm married and I don't marry, and then this, and what about this, and my body, and my, blah, 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 without analyzing it, how does it feel? For me, that's a good way of knowing, okay, this comes from a God made rule. In other words, it feels right to me. And this comes from a man made rule. It just doesn't feel right to me, or I have to convince my head to believe in it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly.
Yeah, unless they're both the same, if it's true for both, great. But
I think you're right. That's how you can discern. When Jesus was talking about church, he was not talking about a physical building or only one group of people. He used the word church with a small c, which means a body or a group of people. They're all going in the same direction. You know what I mean? It could be 8 billion people from any different tradition. There's a lot of division in the world right now. So everybody's putting themselves in this little pile and that little pile and this little pile. But the bottom line is that we are not divided. We are not separated. We are all connected. We are all, what happens to one happens to all.
yeah,
And God does not look at you as a Roman Catholic or a Jewish person or Presbyterian or Lutheran or Muslim or whatever. He doesn't look at people and put them in folders and files. When he looks at a person, he looks at their heart. That's what's important. It's not what's up here, it's what's in here. And it's how you live your life. And people will learn if they choose you and they admire you, they're going to see how you live your life. And then they will live their life the same way or try to. And that's what I do with Jesus. It's like there are mysteries in this world I may never understand until I die the final time. And that's okay with me. But, ever since I was a child, I've loved him and I try to live my life the way he could have lived his. I don't have all the answers, but you do get that gnawing sensation somewhere deep in your soul. This rule was made by man and I don't agree with it. This rule was obviously made by God and that's fine. But people, I think they learn as they go on. When I go to a church and I listen to the priest talk, I'm on the edge of my seat going, "Okay, you got it up to that point. Keep going, keep going, keep going." And they don't because they have to reach multiple people and not everybody's at the same level. And
mhm,
so when they're giving a homily or a talk or whatever, they can't just blurt out everything and blow people's minds. I learned that with God, He's so compassionate and so loving. And whatever name people wanna call him, he doesn't care. The biggest rules and Jesus was the one who brought them. But over the centuries, there were many, many prophets trying to tell the people at the time who God was and what he wanted or what we need to do. And what did we do? We killed them. We didn't like what they had to say. We wanna be bad, not
sure.
good.
I
You
think
know?
that that's the thing, I think that before a light worker, let's call it would be shut down because we lived in the times where there was more control. People needed to fit into a certain mold for certain things. And now I think that as we transition into more aware human beings, we are given a bit more freedom and we're starting to empower ourselves. And
That's what's important.
really, we all are. Stop being handcuffed to anybody else's belief system and start trusting ourselves. So I think we're going through that evolution of trusting ourselves and of believing our hearts and of connecting to our inner selves. It's a pretty exciting time. And I think it's a time where, whether it's Jesus, Muhammad, or Buddha, it doesn't matter, guys. What matters is the principles. The
Exactly. But one of the things that's very important, and I've been told this over and over, when I have prayer time and I'm communicating with God, with Jesus, the angels, whatever, and I do have a particular spirit guide. but um, that's a totally different thing than
Mm.
when I'm communicating with the divine.
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to talk about the tying in of the different religions. I mean, we're not there yet. Definitely not. It's 2025. Religions are still fighting against each other. So we're not there yet. But I think that we're at the seeds are starting to sprout and in between in all religions, because I have Muslim friends here in South Africa where I live who are totally into the spiritual vibe, and also, definitely Jewish and Christian, and is a bit of everything. So it's like transcending all of these different religions, thank goodness. It's like, hey, we are spiritual beings. It is all up to us, right? We are really, truly creating this reality, and we're starting to understand how and all of that stuff. And it's exciting, because we're also figuring out a whole bunch of like scientific stuff. And so, yay, science and spirituality finally hang out. And it's exciting, it's an awakening. It's an awakening. That's why I love doing what I'm doing, because I'm like literally fascinated every single day. I mean, I'm speaking to practitioners, I'm speaking to you. It's like, it blows my mind, right? But it's interesting. It's like finding out who you really are. I mean, for me, like, I can't think of anything more interesting. I mean, I'm me. Like, everything is experienced through me. Therefore, I would love to know me, like what's going on here, instead of like going through traffic every day and like dropping off my kids and it's just like not even thinking, about these things. So I love to spark the conversation. Sometimes, yeah, I don't understand how other people don't talk about this all the time, but I can understand that it can get too much sometimes, because we're also here to have this very physical experience of like, the adventure. We're here on the adventure. So we came for the adventure. Therefore, we want to have some adventure, some drama, some something. But but if you live even with your drama, like just conscious of who you are, knowing that you are here to play this little game, and that, hey, you are actually fine because you are really just love. So when you know that, you're like, okay, like Jesus, I can chill out a little bit. Not Jesus in that way, but like,
But
geez.
it's important for people to honor, validate, respect everybody else's traditions and faith. You know, each person has a path that they have to walk.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the journey that makes it great and wonderful. It's the path as you walk every single day. You decide what
Yeah.
path you want to take, and then you live that path. It doesn't matter what color skin you have or what tradition you follow or religion. God is bigger than any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's important for all of us to come together at this point in life. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. This group of people don't have all of it. They have a little piece. The other people have a little piece. You have a little piece. I have a little piece.
Mhm.
We all come to the table with our pieces of puzzle and we put it down there and they all fit. And then you're able to see this beautiful tapestry that
Mm.
includes everyone. It's inclusive, it's not exclusive. And if someone is following a wrong path, they find that whatever church they're going to or whatever tradition they're following or whatever, if they suddenly feel that that's not for them, turn around and go back. Find another path that works for you, as long as it brings you closer to the one God. And, everybody is important. Nobody's above anybody else.
I think that that's a great place to end this conversation, which has been so amazing. Thank you for letting me touch on dangerous ground, because it is a bit touchy, and sorry for the viewers if anybody's upset about this. But I think that if this talk upsets you, then I would say, why is this upsetting? Why is this upsetting? Which part is not aligned? And upsetment is a misalignment somewhere. And I'm not saying I'm right, you're wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying look inward, and see what's going on, and try and figure it out, because I don't think we need to live in any kind of fear. We can live in a place of alignment. So this is a great place to start. If this conversation is uncomfortable, this is a great time to pause and meditate and go inward and feel what's going on inside there. So we're going to end it there. Sharon, so great. I am going to put a link to your other interviews, which talk about your NDEs because they're amazing. So please watch them. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the light.
Oh, thank you so much.
Bye bye.